Shot for goal. Shot for goal. Shot for goal. Shot for goal. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you may be tuning in from. Thanks for joining us here on Shot for Goal. I'm your regular host, Steph Pazzo. And this week, Noah Brinkworth unavailable. We brought in EUCF expert in all things ultimate, particularly on the continent, Benji Reese. Benjamin, how you doing today?
Honestly, not bad. I'm just about, I think, recovered from a slightly wild weekend in Wrocław. Let's be real about it. All sorts of storylines coming out of that one, but yeah, feeling a little bit more refreshed now.
Happy to have you back and refreshed. I was keenly watching as much as I could full games, but definitely finger on the pulse over there. So we'll have plenty to extract from you to so that we know, vibes, feels, how it was on the ground. But we are going to start down where I was in Sardinia in the World Great Grand Masters Beach Ultimate Club Championship. Let's not leave any letters of that acronym alphabet out. You've been there before. I know you love the Great Grand Masters, Benj. You were there last year in Portugal, or were you gone? But you were gone by then. You were.
I've been both. I've been before, both in Portimao and in Villasimius in Sardinia. Both wonderful venues.
They are, and we were back at that wonderful venue in between the lagoon and the sea, southeastern tip of the footprint-shaped island, and it was awesome. There's 20 teams in the division, put into 4 pools of 5. They've worked their way out. Crossovers for the first place teams to reseed, and then 2s played 3s to get in. 4 U.S. teams. 3 of them were a step ahead of everyone, it seemed. And then you get your Euros pulling up most of the way. 2 Canadian teams, 1 Aussie team, but a big chunk of European teams making up for the bulk of the tournament. And Benj, when we broke it all down, when we shook it all up, it was these Americans, 3 of them at the top of the pile. Spangled, last year's champions. Notsuo, you spell Houston backwards, and that's what you get. Last year's quarter finalists. And
champions a couple of years ago, I think.
That's right, they were champions 2 years ago on the beaches of Sardinia. And a team called Chicken Pox, spelled Pax, but I was corrected in the chats that it's some Latin pronunciation. And then again by the team that it is Chicken Pox, who were sensational. Spoiler, they were the champs. And I'll give them a bit of a shout out first because they were amazing. Actually, trail of the tournament. Notsuo probably were in the best form throughout. Spangled got stronger as they went. Spangled played Chicken Pox for the seeding game. Both were undefeated and had an 11-8 lead. After Notsuo dusted off Finland, I ran over to kind of check out the final, and Spangled imploded. Chicken Pox scored, 4 in a row essentially to win the game. Twice they shot deep and really contentious foul calls. And if you've been to Great Grand Masters, you know that they debate their fouls like no other. There is some serious animosity that comes into it when they get going, gritted teeth. Anyways, Spangled kind of imploded, gave up 4 in a row, and then they had to cross over against Notsuo. Chicken Pox dusted off Finland. They were through to the final, and this game, Notsuo against Spangled, was one for the ages. There were as many calls as I've seen in a game. There was a lot of contention and contentious calls. John Dock was hilarious on the mic at one stage saying, I could just walk down the sideline with my microphone right now and you'd get a lot better color commentary than I'm giving you, but we'd probably be taken off the air in a couple minutes. There was foul language. It was, all said though, it was like a train wreck, one of those things you just couldn't take your eye off. It was bloody awesome. And with that, I think we've got a clip of some of the highlights of that to show before we, have our thoughts and kind of sum up the tournament. That one lands in and rolls well too. A great pull. Can they get their first break of the game? Ruiz to Elliott. Championship on the line. Elliott to Ruiz. He gets two hands on it. Elliott leads into Masket. Masket overshoots, and there's a chance to break Scullion. And a point block on the huck attempt. Ruiz dives in the lane and denies.
Yeah, and I understand he wanted to get it, but he could have pivoted again and still thrown it.
Elliott with the disc. Chance for glory. And they have got it. No, yes, they have indeed. Elliott to Ruiz. And that is a dominant victory for Chickenpox.
Chickenpox, I mean, fantastic result. Absolutely came out here. Blew away Notsuo. Notsuo, I'm not sure, actually, if there was enough that they could have gotten a win on that.
Yeah, that's Ruiz is a name, Benji, that was playing like he was a open age senior player, but by far the best player in the tournament. Him and Will Deaver, the managing director, president to some end of USAU Ultimate, really controlled the back line there.
So what you're saying is it's a big win for the underdogs and the little man.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Chickenpox had a smaller roster, and going into this, up until that game against Spangled when they knocked them off 4 in a row, they were considered the third best team here. But as they went, and then certainly the first time I watched a full game out of them, it was like, yeah, this team is incredible, and they were dominant and worthy, valiant victors. If you do go back and watch one game, watch that semifinal in its full. Because thanks for the highlights, Grabco. That's kind of a couple turning points and big moments in the game. But the points of contention in that game really are mouth-watering to watch as well. Did you get to feast your eyes on any little bits? Did you comb over the results at the end, Bench?
I kind of gave it a quick scan, but my priorities were sort of elsewhere over that couple of days, I'm afraid. But the great thing, of course, is that it's all up there to go and watch back whenever I want.
Yeah, it certainly is. And where your attention is where we'll shift our attention to now. You were in Wrocław. The annual stop, it seems, at least, or maybe more some years. For EUF tournaments. This time, the big one, EUCF, was there. Let's kind of go through the champs, semis and champs, and big storylines and narratives from each division. Let's start with mixed, then we'll go women, then we'll go open, and let's hand it over, Benji. In the mixed division, I'll start with the champs were Mosquitoes. Tell us about it, because I was watching from afar, and I knew they were good. They were the number one seeds, but they seemed to really stamp their dominance.
Yeah, this was definitely kind of the least eventful, dramatic division. In the final, Mosquitoes were, I was going to say they were a cut above. It was a really professional performance for a team that had not been on that sort of stage before. Elite Invite Final is obviously somewhat of a tester, but it's not the same as EUCF. You're in a big stadium with a hot crowd. You'd be understandable to be a little bit nervy in a situation like that, but they seemed so comfortable, so at ease against even though Mosquitoes were the number one seed throughout the regular season, there's no doubt in my mind that Deep Space were going in as the favourite. You're the two-time reigning champion. You won your first crown in that stadium 2 years ago as a big underdog in exactly the same situation Mosquitoes were in. So you should know exactly what it's all about. But especially with the way that Deep Space polished off TC Salcher in the semi-final when they played as well as I've ever seen them. Hello, Tinks. You getting involved?
With the cat counter up to 1.
Where Deep Space played about as well as I've ever seen them. Off she goes. I thought, if they played anything close to that, then Mosquitoes wouldn't have a chance. But Deep Space were really uncharacteristically sloppy for them. Like their D-line turned it over once all game on their final possession in the semi-final against a really good Tifsid Hauke team. Let's not get that twisted. And then in the final, they just felt so flat. They so many possessions where they just could not get on the same page. And Mosquitoes, to their credit, they really took advantage of it. It was an outstanding performance from the upstart Austrians, who are a deserved first-time champion. And the way the mixed division's gone over the best part of a decade at this point it's kind of, you've had teams that are usually, when you're on top, you stay there for a couple of years. Mosquitoes will try and be the next cab off the rank in that respect.
Benj, the final goal was, I believe, Joanna Roy to Romina Seiler. I've looked up and down the stat sheet, their score sheet. Any players that you believe deserve a shout out on Mosquitoes as champs, as these new champs that were pulling a lot of weight?
Yeah, you're right to point out Johanna Roy. She actually had a bit more of a quiet game in the final, to be honest, partly because their O-line wasn't on the field that much. Their D-line just got on a big old roll and, refused to get off the field. She was especially outstanding in their semi-final against the veteran Germans. Disconnection, although I say veterans, they have retooled a little bit. The top female matching players are outstanding. And they could put World Games players on Johanna Roy, and they did, and it didn't really do enough to stop her, which I think just shows how well she was playing. She'll certainly be in awards conversation when that comes around in a month or so. The Ungetter brothers are just dynamite in the backfield for the Austrians. Christoph, slightly older than Konstantin, and they're both big lefty throwers. They'll take on creative options, and they just continually get the disc downfield really effectively. Marcus Hamel's often the favoured target. He's a very big body, and that is something that is, certainly useful. It doesn't hurt. I think Jakob Dunson's the heartbeat of the team. They, relied on the fact that they've been in that position in the past. They, are the emotional heartbeat of that team, in my opinion. And they had a phenomenal weekend, and they will also certainly be in awards conversation whenever those get written.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Jakob was awesome all season as well. I only got to see little bits and pieces of them playing at EUCF, but every time seemed to be getting the job done, if not shining. I also go back to the last time Jakob played in the open division at Windmill, and these steps onto the big stage, that Callahan to take the win in that semi essentially is just all little steps to this ascendancy to greatness now.
There's no doubting their quality, certainly. I mean, but it's different to, as opposed to kind of being a piece of the puzzle, to kind of being that keystone that the whole bridge is built around. And they, certainly I think going into their quarter-final against Tartu Turbulence, exactly the same stage last year, game script exactly the same, everyone's clean holding throughout the first half, and it feels like this is exactly the situation they were in. And on that occasion, Tartu were able to kind of have those big players step up, make the plays that took the victory. And this time they got the cheeky break into half and then kind of never looked back from there. And it showed, hey, we've been in this position. It's not a problem. We know that we're another year improved. We've got that extra faith and confidence that this time things are going to go our way.
And they did go their way, and congratulations to Mosquito. Ben, if we take a look around the rest of the division, some surprises to me when I'm looking at the 1 to 8 bracket. I think the first thing and maybe I had a little premonition, that's why I want to bring it up, but Disco Bolo seemed to be one of the teams that had the biggest jumps in the tournament. Did you get a chance to see them play or any finger on the pulse on how they were going?
Saw their quarterfinal against Disconnection, which was a kind of strange game because offenses were very much on top, but it didn't necessarily feel like the offenses were always playing that well. I feel like it was more defenses kind of struggling to get hold of it on the fast track. I thought, if being critical in that semi-final particularly, they were very solid in what they wanted to do, O-line, D-line, and they could have crossed players a bit earlier to try and get more of an impact. They're also very male matching dominant, but they're a fun watch. Like the fact that they got the tournament off to a banging start. They had a 15-11 win over Padova Rangers in their first game, which kind of took everyone by surprise. Not only for them to win, but win so comfortably, and yet they're in a position where the way the other pools shook out, that going into their last group game against Heck, who ended up finishing in last place in the end, it went down to Universe Point, and if Disco Bolo won, then they'd get the bye through to quarterfinals, and if they lost, they'd have been out of the bracket entirely. I mean, that's how close that pool was, with Padova and Savage kind of playing out, and there was three-way tie weirdness that would have meant that their tournament came one point away from ending even, and in the end they just about got it to stick and came out with a 7th place finish at the end, which is a spot at next year's Leech invite that I'm sure they'll be very, very happy with. I also need to hit up Jacopo Kelly for some gelato recommendations, I understand.
Yes, he's the man, Jacopo Kelly. I'm in Valencia right now, and I just went to his recommendation, and it was spot on as per usual. So, but let's not exhaust that resource, okay? One bottom half surprise for me, if I look from the 9-16, Reading seemed to have a pretty bad outing over there. Taking losses to Mosquitoes to open things up. Okay, they went on to be champs, but Leftovers, okay, had a surprisingly very good tournament, I think.
That game was notable, the Leftovers Reading game, because there was quite an extended spirit stoppage. Reading received a 5 and Leftovers received a 2.
Wow. Okay, so we might have to dig deeper into what exactly transpired, but losses the same. They end up losing to Padova. They lost to Forehands after that. They got a win on ZU and Glasgow to finish, but I'd say they've got to be one of the teams that are maybe most disappointed based on their potential ambition going in after, being in or around the top the last 3-4 years.
Yeah, they really underperformed. Let's not sugarcoat it. Certainly, you look at a team that took Deep Space to Universe in that Nationals final, and I say took Deep Space to Universe, they were multiple chances to win it and could not get the job done. Had they done so, it would have given them a huge confidence boost, I think, coming into EUCF. As it is, you could tell that something wasn't quite sitting right with them. Even when they were winning games, I never felt like they were truly clicking necessarily and playing to the limit of their ability. Certainly, come the off season, they'll have a lot of things to look at and say, who are we? Where do we see ourselves? How do we realistically achieve that?
Cool. Any last thoughts on the mixed division, or are you ready to move on to women's here?
I think let's keep on going.
Yeah, I mean, again, I know Benji, I could give him a topic, give him a team, and he'd have plenty to say, but we're going to keep things moving. So into the women's divisions, congratulations to not newly crowned, but re-crowned champions after a year away. BFD Shout, they were awesome. And to Moon Cup for making that final, defying once again the odds. Kind of, last year I think it was a big surprise. This year their roster revamp was like, okay, they're in legitimate contention, but they're going to have to go through Groot. So it seems unlikely, and I suppose that's the first storyline here. That Groot, defending champs don't make semis, and yeah, they ended up in 5th, I believe, if I'm not wrong here.
They did win out the 5-8 bracket, yeah.
They did win out, but yeah, talk about I guess that game first. It was 15-13 win. Groot lost to Moon Cup and lost their chance to defend.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that are a titles level team. Anyone who tells you that they were never going to win, I think is being very disingenuous. Moon Cup just got a bit of a lead into the end of the first half, and then had a big 5-1 run at the start of the second half. And while Flik kind of began to eat their way away at it, Moon Cup were able to hold on for the victory. Certainly for Flik, it's a disappointing weekend. Like, you're going in as the reigning champions, the favourites in many people's eyes, and to not even make the semi-finals is really tough. But that is the level of the women's division now, that there are enough good teams at that top end that you have to have a good weekend. You can't afford to have an off game, and because you can get punished. This is something I forgot to mention with Deep Space. Why it's so hard to do the three-peat, go back to back to back. We'll know this from their time in the mixed division as well, that the longer that streak goes, the more chance there is that there's an off game in there. And the question is, when you have that bad day, are you still able to get it over the line? Is the opponent good enough to punish you? And there's plenty of teams around that top 8 that are more than good enough. Moon Cup amongst them, went down in the pool to BFD Shout, and Groot would have known that this was always, the likelihood is you're going to play Shout or Moon Cup in the quarterfinal. So it wouldn't have been a surprise to them, and they're ready for it. But it's after, as you must admit, last year was a surprise for Moon Cup. Nothing against them, but I think people were wondering, okay, was it a one-time thing? How well can they kind of develop what they've got there? And it seemed to go pretty well for them. Let's not pretend otherwise. They have a lot of international talent, some of which is based in Brussels, some of which is not. Led, I think, from the front at the moment by Carmen Lagala, who has a good, strong case to be the best player on the continent at the moment. Lisson Bono is certainly not far behind. I thought Julia Harris was outstanding for their offense for Moon Cup this weekend. Really just consistent at keeping the disc moving, making good decisions, playing hard after the turn to get it back. I've been a player who's thrown under the radar a little bit in the past couple of years, but is certainly, I think, an outstanding player. It certainly helps bringing over those extra French World Games legs. Lisson Bono, we mentioned, has been there in the past, so has Salomé Rollet. But adding Zoé Forget and Camille Blanc is certainly not going to hurt your team by any rate. It's just against a Shout side that has a little bit of international flavour, but I think their biggest contributors is kind of a nice balance where, alongside players like Charles, Müller, Kometsova, you've got kind of the homegrown talent, Sorrenti, Pangossi, Elena Bengi. I think that Shout are just so deep up and down the roster. Like, there's no weak links there. They can continue to roll out players and adapt into different systems, and they're such a well-coached side, our Shout, where they can always find some other look, some adaptation to try and throw you off your game. I mean, they were the number 1 seeds for a reason. They'd had an outstanding season. To see them take home the crown is probably justified.
Yeah, a 1 point difference. Obviously, that's how close you slice them.
It's a heck of a final, by the way.
Oh yeah,
Really encourage everyone to go back and watch
it. I watched that one live and loved it. I was with Carmen Lagala the other day. She came to Sardinia after and saw for the first time the highlight of her missing that layout. It was overthrown by a bit, and it was maybe at the back line, but she was it was very painful for her to kind of re-watch how close indeed it was. There's a great slow-mo clip of it that goodness,
use it as fuel for CFC, Carmen.
She will be, I am sure of that. So great final, good to talk about. Shout, very deserving champs to be back on top. Great core, good use of the roster ruling and kind of being able to put in all the right external parts. I think Moon Cup took a very, very much a page from that model and have done the same thing, maybe even more externals or more external strength, but both of them have great external strength with good, very, very good, strong cores. Groot is doing it a bit more homegrown. They were ousted. Uh, what other storylines in the women's division? Any surprises? I mean, Yaka kind of being back on the podium was big. You can talk about that. Tequila Boom Boom, I think, was
those
the
two
biggest
semi-finalists.
surprise for me. That I was like, holy, they won. They knocked off. When they knocked off Jinx in the quarters, that was like, okay, this is not just one lucky win, two lucky wins here. They've got to be legit. Why don't you talk a bit about Tequila and then a bit about Yaka?
So I think now we're in the situation where there are 8 teams, like everyone in the quarterfinals, legitimately on their day could have been a semi-finalist, and you'd looked at it and thought, yeah, okay, sure, why not? Tequila Boom Boom have so much strong young talent. Nicole Afiata is someone that I think people are generally familiar with and often is a key player for them. But when you're a younger team, I think there's certainly maybe not the expectation, but the game planning is usually clear, and that is we will find ways to keep your best players out of the game. And, she was generally always drawing the best matchup. Sometimes they had a double cupboard, and while it did kind of limit her impact. I say limit because she still finished with 23 assists and 18 goals. So, not a bad weekend. But other players were able to step up in her stead. Lucrezia Grossi had 30 combined goals and assists, was outstanding. Giulia Villa was a player who was excellent for Italy at EYUC in Trnava this summer. She was also very good, but lots of good young talent coming through that Rimini system, which I think people have known for a while that they continue to produce a lot of good, strong players. I mean, look, they're the Italian national champions, and they've got a spot at what next year, knocking off Shout in at their national championship. And yes, people will say, well, Shout wasn't at full strength, they took their eye off the ball. All of that might be true, but you've still got to be good enough to go out there and beat them, and Tequila Boom Boom did that and took advantage of the opportunity they were presented. Backing that up on this international stage bodes really well for them going into Limerick next year.
Yeah, they proved, even if Shout were a little bit stronger on home soil, to say it was a fluke or it was because of Shout's reduced roster, that was put to rest after a performance like that in Poland. Yaka last year kind of got bounced and maybe dismissed, and they'll probably be memeing stuff that I said last week. I've kind of said maybe they get too much veteran hands on the wheel and not really relinquishing as much space or power to the great amount of youth they've got. Seems like I'm wrong. Not the first time. But it looks like they put it all together, got most things right. Didn't ascend right back to the top, but bronze medalists, sounds like a good campaign. What did you see of them out there?
Yeah, they very nearly won their pool. They only lost to Jinx on Universe in their last pool play game. Otherwise, they would have gone straight through to the quarterfinals. As it is, they won their round of 16 game and then had a quarterfinal against an Iceni team that again was really off the boil, because you were there at UK Nationals with me, and they looked outstanding, with the exception of the last 15 minutes of the final where they just kind of struggled to get it over the line a little bit. Otherwise, they were far and away the best team there, and it looked like, okay, this is a team that can really contend for medals at EUCF. It just didn't happen for them in that day. Across the whole weekend, the only game a GB team won in the Olympic Stadium was actually Reading versus Lemmings, so someone had to win. Otherwise, British teams went over in the stadium, which is very strange. Chloe Olivier, if people weren't already aware coming into this season, and then weren't even more aware following the World Games, she's outstanding. Chloe Oe is an absolute baller. Lila Petitbon, one of these other younger players who's coming through and also had a big, strong role. Paula Bass was absolutely dealing. It's so good to see them when they play with confidence and swagger and they take on the slightly unorthodox options, and it's like, hell yes, that's exactly what I want from them. Do I think Yaka were necessarily the third best team on the continent over the course of the season? Maybe not, but they managed to find a way to get it to come together at Euros, which is kind of trademark Yaka, really, right? How many seasons in the past have we been like, I don't know about them this year, and then you comes to EUCF and you're like, yeah, fair enough. I'll I'll shut up. They're very good at making you some delicious humble pie. Credit to them for that.
Yeah, well said. Humble pie for me, for sure. When we talk Yaka. Jinx, Benj, do you think they were disappointed with themselves? I mean, it seems like the loss to Tequila in the quarters was the one that stung them. Otherwise, they got wins. The Universe over Yaka. They won their pool. They beat Bristol. They beat Heidi Synergy. But then, they get the round off. And was that the big surprise?
They were just really struggling with injury that weekend. I mean, Eva Bono was one of their big additions this season, and obviously broke their hand in the run to World Games, which gutting for them. And they missed her on the field, which is sort of what you'd expect for the runner-up player of the year, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be a big impact. Greta Meliger wasn't playing. Fenya Gavich wasn't playing.
Nikki Priyan was out as well.
Nikki Priyan wasn't playing. They were missing a lot of really good, strong players at the top end of that roster.
So potentially fair to say they did all right, considering the blows they've taken in the roster department. They still ended up in 7th. They didn't have the strongest game after, or the strongest run. Well, they did have to go through Groot. That's why. So they had to go through Groot after getting eliminated, and
they were still 1 point away from the semi-finals, despite lacking in numbers slightly and missing not just that they were lacking depth, they were lacking a lot of their big name stars. So to still come that close, Jinx will be there or thereabouts again next season. I hear Berlin is going to be good next year, by the way. So I think they'll be fine. I've got no worries about Jinx. At any rate, they seemed in very good spirits on finals day, because I was sitting with them during the Open final in the Wall City Ultras, and they were having a great time, and so was I. I would never expect anything less from Jinx.
Well, that doesn't surprise me one single bit. I love Jinx, and I look forward to seeing them get right back to where they're expecting themselves to be.
Just want to give a nod to East Block as well. Obviously, it's been known that I've had some affinity for them for a while. It helps as well that ULTI.TV's own Lou Burgess is now in charge coaching, and for a team that lost its 3 best players, Callista's gone to Groot, and that is always going to be a huge loss. Teresa Mrazova went to Shout, and Teresa Havaltseva went to Jinx, and they all played big roles on those teams. And to still come 8th with a lot of younger players is a huge result for them. Because they finished 8th, they won't get an elite invite spot. But
ironic who took that one.
3SB, but who knows if 3SB will go to elite invite. I don't think they've always done it in the past, and I think at any rate, East Block might not have gone anyway. But they're still outstanding. So many good, strong young players, which is so good actually that the teams that are coming through, it's not just like that they've picked big names up from around the continent. Like Tequila Boom Boom is a Rimini side. This is very much a Czech side. Dominika Hadová is the next big thing to come from this East Block side. You should certainly keep a big, strong eye out.
All right. We will keep an eye out. And as you mentioned, Jinx were in the stands cheering on Wall City, and we know they went deep, but we're going to talk about all things Open Division. Right after this, we can take a very, very short break here and be back with Open Division and then finish things up with what's ahead.
Always on the move? You can keep up to date with ULTI.TV on all of our social media channels. Like, follow, subscribe, share us with a friend, or send us a message just to say hey. Thank you for supporting us in our mission to grow Ultimate everywhere.
Oh my goodness! That is unbelievable! And credit to Chen and Maehr!
That was absolutely incredible!
Welcome back. Shot for goal. Benji Reese getting his brain picked for all that wonderful knowledge. Abundant it is, but particularly that he's brought back from Wrocław, Poland. We're into the open division, Benj. Let's go to the final. There were some wild results in this division.
Oh, yes.
I think, if I talk storylines, the wild cards were legit. And I see in the comments right now nothing but bloody rats, rat emojis even. They want their call out. They're going to get their call out around now. They did a great job, but all the wild cards, maybe short of free speed, 3 wild cards proved their worth. The number 1 seed dropped to second last, 15th place. That is wild.
With all due respect to Chuck, you sort of love to see it.
I will have a couple quotes from John Dock on this, some Dockisms that he had regarding Jack. A whole lot in between. We'll try and touch on it, but let's move right to the top as we've done with the other divisions. Congratulations to the Mooncatchers, back-to-back champs, only the 4th team to have done that, to have accomplished that feat. They beat Wall City, who's a very good team and shouldn't come as a surprise. They made the final at Elite Invite. We hear Berlin's going to be good this year. We hear it every year. They've just had the stumbles, it seems, at EUCF a little bit too often, and people are remembering those stumbles a bit more. And they came out this year and pulled it off with some monumentous wins along the way. The final, not their strongest, but they certainly didn't let Mooncatchers run away with it.
It was a good final. It was a really fun final. The atmosphere was electric. I just wish it was kind of played in the evening, because obviously when you play in the evening under the lights, people are a few more beers deep and everything really does explode. But it was a hot crowd, and that really added to the occasion and really damaged my voice. Thank you very much.
Well, it's back now. You sound lovely.
It's my own fault. I honestly, this is the thing when you commentate on Frisbee, you're like, sometimes I don't actually want to do this properly, and I just want to take the headset off, get the beers in, and just chant nonsense at people. It's really good fun.
Yes. So, lots of fun, good times, Mooncatchers. Let's talk about the new champs. They retooled their roster. They lost Blastman and Oort, and then they added Spalholz, Anslen. Where else do we go? Barsazi. Right off the top, they added Arno Vanderost from down the road in Leuven. Ref Yonkers back from injury. It was a team on paper that was mind-bogglingly good, and they put it together again. Mikey Lund shipped in after the Tokai Super Team merger with PA de la Mine de Bex. Those two loved working together, did it again, working on the AP defense. They were pretty damn good. There were scares, but I never really believed that. Were there any games you believed they were going to lose? They were down to Groot for a little while.
They were down big to Clapham in the pool, and then the thing is with Mooncatchers is that when push comes to shove, they are gonna cross their stars over, and if their stars had any way, they would not come off the field. Like, good luck trying to get Dan off the field when he's champing at the bit. Soft will go out there every single point if he has to, and they can just continue rolling studs out there. You've got plenty of players you can flick and flex between both lines, and something that I kind of was a little bit frustrated with across the divisions actually this year was the number of situations where I was looking at teams thinking, now is a great opportunity to stack a line maybe going into half, because you get a definite break coming out of it. Maybe just bring 1 or 2 players over because you've got the opportunity now. The O-line got off the field quickly. It's really humming along. So actually you can afford to give them a bit more run on defense. And teams, I think, generally were kind of too reticent to do that. Mooncatchers are a great example of, just let them cook. Like, you don't want to be taking your best players off the field, especially when you get to the finals. You want to make sure that they've left everything out there and don't feel like they've got a little bit left in the tank. In pool play, whatever, I get that it's, you want to take maybe a slightly more holistic approach and think, well, there's no point winning the battle if we lose the war in the end, right? But Mooncatchers are very good at, they will cross players over, and they want to make sure that they will win every game. Like, they could have lost the pool play game to Clapham, like, okay, we're in a little bit of a hole, we're not going to try and lose, but we're not going to get Dan and Barzassi out there every point. We don't need to. But they're a team that is like, no, we come to win. We will win every game. And, yeah, they're fucking good at it. Excuse my language. They are really, really good at it. They've got the studs played like how you thought they would. Dan was nuclear as normal. And you come in looking back at it and thinking, was Dan that good? Didn't really stand out because he was just doing exactly what he does. And what he does is be arguably the best player in the world. Like, 33 total goals, assists is silly. Jeroen de Ridder is a kind of a player who was a bit less on the radar, but I thought was outstanding for them over the course of the weekend. And Ref is still not quite back to his best. I think probably if you asked him honestly, like, how close do you think you are to being at your peak? I don't know what he'd say, but even being close to but even what he's got, I still think a bit of room to grow back into it. Just so good to see them out there, and he was again such a big heartbeat of that team that I don't think that's to be overlooked.
Yeah, I agree as usual with everything you say there. Moon were awesome and very deserved winners. Wall, I guess the bigger surprise to get into that situation.
Love it. I was so happy for Wall because they are the loveliest fellas. Great fun.
It's funny that they got on such a hot start. Like, they lost their first game to Chevy.
They did.
And again, John Dock was like, it's the same old Wall City again. They're not even going to win their pool. You're talking about them getting to the final, getting the semis. I was like, maybe you're right. It's kind of like drinking the John Dock Kool-Aid. But
Berlin's going to be good this year, Snap.
That was maybe the slap in the face they needed. Who knows? I guess they just kept winning after that. And then they got into 2 elimination games, the quarter and the semi. And that's where it was Wall City fireworks. First against La Fota, and then that game against Clapham. Tell us what you know about those rounds.
Let's go from the start. So after they dropped that first game to Chevy on Universe, they then big win over Jet Set, solid win over Heidi. So you finished second in the pool. Had a little bit of trouble with this no good in the crossover. 1 out 15-13, very good. It's appropriate that you talk about Doc because the example I used, much to Liam Grant and Lorcan Murray's chagrin, was the fact that they're like the Irish rugby teams. That they're always like, you look at them on paper, it's like this team should be in the final, in the semi-finals, and for whatever reason they've never been able to get over the quarterfinals hump. And you just think, if it's going to happen, something's going to have to break their way. The La Fota game was crazy back and forth, plenty of lead changes. La Fota went into Universe with the disc, and they had what was a pretty good looking deep shot to Arturo Laffy, and it was a little bit too far and off his hands, one that he would probably have backed himself to have. And they went down the other way, and arguably the 2 best players on that side, Conrad Schlur and Business, Paul Herkins, got him over the line. And what I think that was just a huge monkey off their back, an enormous mental load, was probably reset for them there. That, okay, look, we've done it. We're in the semi-finals now. We're playing in-house money. Clapham, undoubtedly the favourites for that game when you look at Wall's history. And Clapham, boy, did they love shooting themselves in the foot. It felt like the Clapham La Fota final from 2019, just before the pandemic, out in Criolla, where the Italians played lots of junky defences rather than go kind of old school hard match-up one-on-one. Wall City are so good, you can tell that they're very well coached, because what's the one thing that happens on every point?
The pull,
right? And no matter what happens, you're going to be pulling or you're going to be receiving the pull. And you can tell that they're well coached because they run really good pull plays themselves. They're very clear about, this is how we draw things up. This is the spaces we want to clear and we want to attack. And Clapham were aware of that. It was one of their plans was we're going to stop these pool plays, see how well they can get into a normal offensive rhythm, which they were also pretty good at. And the second thing is, on the other end, they were really good at stopping Clapham's starts. They were really good at, we'll put an extra player in the handler space and just have them sag off a little bit to clear that throwing lane. We'll look at where you're, it's a side stack. Okay, we're going to make sure that we're sitting someone underneath it and we're poaching that middle of the field aggressively where you want to create that space to attack. And Clapham just kept throwing it into them. I mean, admittedly, it was into the rapidly increasing gloom, but maybe they couldn't pick out the black shirts. But there were so many opportunities where they just threw it into Wall City players, and you were looking at it, it's like, what the hell is going on? Literally from the very first point, you knew the game was going to be something, because there's a pass down the far sideline that Ferdier jumps the lane and intercepts. Ferdier played great after being injured all season. Good to see him back out there. And then Richard Heinrich, who is another player who was outstanding, one of these big, broad, muscly figures. He puts it to Ferdier in the end zone. It's offline. Justin Ford gets an enormous swat of it away, and it goes right back to Ferdier, who lays out and jumps it in for the break to start. And you're like, this is going to be good. And they built themselves an enormous lead. They were 12-6 up, and at this point you thought,
it's over.
Game
I was
over.
I was watching. This was madness from the other side of the screen.
And Clapham, after playing this, 3 balanced lines all the way through the season, we're going to make sure that everyone's got experience in this moment. Push came to shove. They narrowed down to maybe 12 players, and we're like, no, this is universe for us now. We know there's time left in the game, but we cannot afford to give it to you. And we will just put it on you, and we'll find a way to make it work.
They played probably about 10 players for the rest of that game, maybe 11, 12.
Yeah, and it was kind of a reminder of how good some of that old guard is. Justin Ford had a ludicrous layout block in the lane off of first pass, which...
Yeah, Metzger from his end zone, yes, that was ridiculous.
To be honest, I thought everyone... maybe he even knew that Justin Ford was baiting that right, and was like, I backed myself to get it beyond. Nope. Justin Ford, as soon as the pass went up, you were like, he's got it, never in doubt. And they managed to claw their way all the way back to Universe Point from being pretty much dead and buried. There was a position where they could have maybe had an even further lead, and in the only misstep Paul Herkins made all game, it was a deep shot, which a tough grab, but given how well they were playing, they could have potentially stuck it. And then Clapham began to work their way back into it and was like, hello, is this it? And then they go deep on Universe, it doesn't work. And then Clapham try and work it the other way, and Conor Mickael's close to the sideline, he can't hang on. And then Wall City just about cling on by the very tips of their fingernails. If they'd turned it over again, I think Clapham would have won. They'd have done it second time round, but they never gave them the opportunity, which credit for their big players stepped up huge. You've got that World Games core. We talked about Conrad Schlur, who was maybe the best player on the field at the World Games with the best players in the world. And across the course of the tournament, he was probably their best player. It was the Paul Herkins game, however. Business was the absolute nuts. They played so well defensively all over the field, just unstoppable after the turn. David Metzger had a relatively quiet game by their admittedly lofty standards. Again, World Games player, and they didn't even get on the stat sheet until they scored that very final point.
Game-winning goal, yeah.
Which, certainly not bad. Hartley Greenwald played great all weekend. He really stepped up. Andre Riedlow is dynamite in the handling core for them. He looked phenomenal. These pieces that would come to all over the past couple of years, they really all dovetailed and synergized for that game and for the course of the tournament, really. And they, I think, proved something not just to a lot of observers, but also to themselves. No, we are them. This is who we are. We are that team now. We're going to get over the line in these tough games, as much as they tried to salt it away, because they really did try to lose it at times. Mm-hmm. And they just, in the end, they refused to surrender. And it's an absolute stonker of a game. Fully recommend everyone go back and watch it.
That
And
semi.
they put up a really good fight to Mooncatchers as well in the final, and just fell a little bit short in the end against, I think, the class of the continent. Not that that was ever up to the debate, even though they weren't the number one seeds. I think in people's eyes they were
Well,
the favourites. But Wall put it up to them a little bit and made it tough in that final. You know, Mooncatchers, it felt like they always had it in hand, but Wall City brought it close late. They played really well over the whole that weekend, that whole season. Hopefully, this portends better things to come for them, and we're going to be seeing them on the podium for years going forward.
let's we'll see about that. We're gonna you can keep singing. I'm gonna set us up as we go here. You know, La Fota 1 loss, 5th place. A good tournament. You know, a couple centimeters away, or a stickier finger, Laffy, and that could have been La Fota having another epic battle with Clapham. They got to settle for 5th. Groot end up in 6th. They 1 loss away from having an easier path, but instead they're going to go through Moon, and that ends up being their
That's all their own
downfall.
fault though, because they lost to.
Bad skid.
Well, yeah, they lost to Bad Skid, and you know, all due respect to Bad Skid, who ended up finishing 8th in the end. Bit of a bounce back year for them. That's a team that Groot should be beating handily. Like you would expect Groot to beat Bad Skid, and then okay, well you've got another chance potentially in the pool. But yeah, they were just not really at their best. It felt like a lot was made of their
External pieces, the Americans.
yes, and yeah, as well as Bad Skid. If they beat La Fota, they could have had a 3-way tie. Antonorm felt like he fit pretty well on the offense. For whatever reason, for the majority of the weekend, it felt like Jason Valet and Dan Rittala weren't quite on the same page as the rest of the D-line after the turn. Like, between themselves, it felt like they were keeping it moving, but they just did not have that synergy with what was going on with the rest of the field when those two were kind of marshalling the disc between themselves, and the D-line looked more effective once they pushed one or both of them downfield, and rather than kind of have them quarterback the offense and drive it forward, you know, kind of play a little bit more equitably across that D-line. It felt like it got players involved a bit more. And for Groot, obviously, again, Ben Oort was not active. I think we might have mentioned this before, but he had appendix surgery a couple of weeks ago, and he was there, but he was not playing. And we both know Boort. If they could have, if he could have gone, he would. But he's also, unlike most Ultimate players, not stupid. So I think he knew that he was best preserved sitting this one out on the sideline
Ben, so
rather than making anything worse.
I'm gonna move us right along here, because I still want to talk a little bit about the other side of the bracket. But Chevy and Costa Rica Grandes were the teams of day one, the pool play stories. Both of them they both got the bye. They went into automatic into the quarter. They both. Or Costa Rica lost their quarter. They got stuck with playing Clapham. Chevy moved right into the semis because they ended up with Bad Skid, who overperformed. They overperformed. Both that's when you look at the bracket, it's like, wow, they are one of Bad Skid or Chevy are moving on to the semi here. Not taking anything away from them, but when you look at that whole balance of teams, to know that one of those were going to go to semis, I was like, that is a favorable place to be. I'm sure a La Fota or a Wall City or many other teams would have said, yeah, I'll happily take one of their
Wall
places.
City could have had that path, but they lost to Chevy in the pool. Should they have lost to Chevy in the pool? Maybe they should say that they had opportunities to win that game and they didn't, but you can't knock Chevy for that.
No.
Like the youth players that have been coming through the various kind of schools programs and have kind of been not on the fringes of Chevron, but more and more they're kind of being given the keys to drive that. Yeah, to drive the Chevrons, and they look really good. It felt like things dovetailed for them. They had a lead in that second half up against Mooncatchers, but I must admit, once Mooncatchers kind of got that early break in the second half, you felt like here it comes now. The Belgians are going to put their foot on the gas and break away. But Chevy still had a great weekend coming forth, losing to Clapham somewhat inevitably in the 3v4. But great weekend for Chevy. Costa Rica, after kind of that big upset of Czech in the pool, didn't quite come together in the same way for them from that point forward. But we know, because we talked about it in the women's division as well, Rimini produces so much good, strong talent. And it was a surprise for me to not see them at EUCF last year. Certainly they've got enough that they should be, a top 8 contender going forward.
Yeah. Fabri, Fantini, Ruscello, Semprini. There's so many more, and a wealth of the under-24 talent we saw do so well over in Logroño. A lot of good things coming. Looking on the other side of the bracket, and okay, let's go to Czech. I
think we have to, don't we?
What the hell happened to them? They lost. All right, so they lost their pool play game. They lost their seed when they screwed things up, I guess, against Costa Rica Grandes, because they got 2 easy wins. And all right, maybe took their foot off the gas. I don't know. And Costa Rica got still a 3-point win. And then just absolute explosion for them. Like, just went on losing pretty much everything until they, Frisbee, one of the wild cards, the only team that didn't get, not the only team that didn't get a win, maybe the only team that didn't get a win. So they finally get a win back in the 15-16 game.
Disappointing.
How can you what do you put your finger on? Like, what the hell happened to Czech, the number 1 seeds, champions at Elite Invite, 15th place at EUCF?
I can't talk about. I didn't see the Czech Costa Rica game, but from what I understand, it's similar to the game against Krut, where things weren't quite firing on all cylinders for them, but they weren't shortening lines early enough. They weren't crossing players over early enough. They were kind of treating it as we're just going to come through it, and they didn't quite take into account maybe. I don't know if it's saying they underestimated Costa Rica or they overestimated themselves, maybe, and they didn't. Yeah, they didn't narrow things enough a little bit at times, because the stars on that team should not be losing to Costa Rica. And then I think that probably gave their confidence a little bit of a knock, not just losing to Krut, but the way they lost as well was big. And from there, I guess the heart kind of got ripped out of them a little bit. And it's so tough. You're a team, number 1 overall seed, gold medal aspirations. You're not even in the top 8 at that point. And it's understandable that, you do open things up a little bit more. Your top players, not quite. It's tough to keep going for a game that you were not supposed, quote unquote, to be in. I mean, the teams they lost to, Kafum Örebro, are, they're a tidy team. They were playing it really close with Mooncatchers. Really close. I mean, that game was only 15-13 in the end. They've got a lot of good young players. Jonathan Angegord is a stud. Good to see him recovered after some knee problems. But, I mean, case in point, in the pool, their very first game, they beat 3SB 15-8, exactly what you'd expect. And then in the lower bracket, they lost to 3SB 15-11. Like, it's not like they lost on Universe. That's quite a sizable scoreline. And there's no way, with all due respect to 3SB, Czech should be losing by that much. I mean, it felt like a real Murphy's Law of a tournament. Everything that could go on did go wrong, with the exception of their big players getting really injured. Something was off, though. Vibes clearly off, and I guess once they took that knock against Costa Rica, they just couldn't get themselves out of the hole. Like, finding that opportunity to get the mental reset never came for them.
Right, it'll be very interesting to see how they go next year, going into a Worlds year. We know Czech always ramp up in the World Clubs year. But this will be a big one to bounce back from. Hopefully for them, it's fuel. I guess, Brenji, the last team I really got to give a shout-out to is Bristol again. The Rats. They're in the chat. They don't suck as bad as I said they would. I think I said they will be able to tell me in verbatim that they will not win a game, and they won 2. So they're here, and they're ready for all the big fanfare that I'm going to be eating my words. They won 2 games on Universe. They beat Isno, a Bouchon.
Well, that's a free win, right?
I mean,
Isno without Steph.
They haven't been good since, I was coaching there. And then they beat Heidi's Okay, Heidi's is a win. They got it on Universe. Well done to the Rats. All right. You're going to Worlds. You know how to win at EUCF now. You found your wins. I can eat my words. You guys are half decent, cheese-eating little mongrels.
This is the thing, right? When you're a team with Bristol that qualified as a wild card as the 31st best team in Europe, well, Bristol were never the 31st best team in Europe. Like, let's be real. I mean, that's what the algorithm said, but I think on their day, clearly they're a better side than that. But because they never really had any expectations, you can take it a bit easier during the pool. Just lose tidily to good teams and hold your head up high. There's no shame in that. And then you're nice and fresh for the bracket against teams that hoped/expected to be in the top 8. Their heads are down, and you can pick off some easy wins. Nice. Yeah. Make you look like yourself. Make you look like the 10th best team in Europe.
I love it, Ben. You're making me feel like the good guy almost here, but I'm happy to pound him into the ground a little bit more.
I mean, enough respect to them because, going as such a big underdog, you're playing with house money and a little bit of respect, right? Being the under rat here, where everything you do, you can go at it with a good attitude, good vibes, good energy, and I think part of the reason that Bristol get a lot of stick is because they can take it. Like they revel in it a little bit.
Yeah, so, I almost think they prefer us saying some negatives about them and kicking dirt their way for some strange reason. Shout out to their top stat getters: Chris Allen, Oyama, Bradshaw, and Sam Cam.
It's always pleasing when you see kind of stat getters who's like Akito Oyama, 17 assists, no goals. Henry Juma, 0 assists, 10 goals. Like, I love. It's a very
I do a job. I do a specific job for this team. Yes,
exactly. They're very. I think at times they could be a little bit looser with what they want to do. It feels like they can be very like, here's our system, here's how we run it, here's how we play. And there are sometimes I want them to improvise off that a little bit more and throw a little bit of chaos in. But it's like, oh yes, Akito Oyama, that's a very Nico Müller stat line.
Yes.
Like, all assists, no goals. Henry Juma, like, this is Lele, this is Johan Lee Anderson, no goal, no assists, all goals. Like, I enjoy players with stat line shit like that. I find it very funny.
Cocktail there. Benji, I think that's about going to wrap things up for our EUCF talk. Thank you so much for joining us and providing that. We are not quite finished yet because I'm in Valencia, and there's an exceptional tournament here, WGGMBUCC, XQB. I'll get in crap. The Spanish always correct my pronunciation, no matter how hard I try. But first time streaming, and ULTI.TV has a team in there. That is one exciting thing. But Benj, how about the field at this tournament?
I'm just looking at it now. It's a really, really strong field in both open and women's.
Rip us over open first. Talk the pools down, perhaps. Is that something you can do for us, and we can give a little bit of commentary after you give us the 4 pools of 4, 16-team division.
Yeah, let me find my notes, because I bring this up beforehand and then I closed the tab like a genius.
I'm more than happy to roll with it unless you think
open.
you got it.
Pool A, you've got Spain. They might be good.
Yeah.
Just a hunch, but I think
Spain on a
might
beach.
Be good.
Spain Open.
Yeah. Dindon, which is essentially Italy, right?
Yes, it is the Italian Open team.
Isaacson United, so a lot of those good, strong Swedes will be there. 10-4 Midnight, which is, I think, a lot of kind of a German roster.
It is. Schmitz, Gaugas, Fox.
They've got some experience. A fair few of those were on the Würzburg side that came as a semi-finalist at EBUCC. Pool B, Great Britain, who are actually the reigning European champions. Admittedly, the last EBUC was in 2019, pre-pandemic, but I mean, they're a good side. Denmark Open, Spanish Masters, and Quixotes. So again, lots of good, strong beach players. Pool C has Solaris, which is the Polish national team, who are always good on the beach, champions at EBUCC, although not maybe quite at full strength. Germany, so the German men, GB Open Masters, and NMNM. I don't know what that name's about.
But it's basically the home team. That is basically Murciélagos that are not on Spain Open or Spain Masters or Spain Mixed.
Yeah, and so again, no problems. And then Pool D has HMG, which is kind of a British Isles based.
Quite tidy.
Roughly. Yeah, roster. German men masters. La Mixta, which is the male matching players from Spain mixed. So they are going to be very good.
Mm-hmm.
And ULTI.TV?
ULTI.TV, Benji. Let's start with that team. I basically got called from Elliot Bonnet and said, hey, can we do the same thing with JKBO as we've done with CFC and put a team together? I already got about 4 or 5, but I don't know if I can kind of, put a whole roster
if you've
together.
Got the pool.
Yeah, well, he just does it. He kind of does. He's like, I'm sure Bonnet's got the pull. People will want to play. Like, he's who I dangled once I started calling people. But he's like, I just don't know all the names. Like, can we find beach specialists? So that's what, I was like, all right, let's get some people who are very good and play a lot of beach. And I think to that end, and then I said, okay, I'm going to take, if I take any throwers, they're going to be my veterans. And then everybody else has to have strengths in speed and athleticism. And I think we got that.
So basically you wanted goons.
Yes, goons. But yeah, we got a good roster of goons. If you can go check that out on our Instagram. But Bonet, Nas, Toby Mine, Jan Bobinets, Jorge Buja, the Colombian Tokai super teamer, Shane Corcoran, Andre Krajovsky, Martin Giuliani, another Rimini, Pedro Vargas, the king of the beach, Pedro Pascual, the speedster, Nino Stauffer, said to be the best young player, but maybe the best player in Switzerland, Dimi Pacholkin, who is an absolute lights-out beast, David Barsazi, and then myself and Noah will take a point or two here or there if we can get him.
If you have to.
Yeah. But yeah, good looking team. They put us in 4th seed, which I think is very fair. There, you have a look at all those wonderful faces. I think it's like you said, are we going to win it? And of course I said, yeah, you better believe we are. Is this going to be a no-brainer? Is this going to be the confidence of going into Windmill with the first Tokai super team? Perhaps not quite, but can we win here? Yes. I think there's enough players to do it. We're going to have our hands full.
It's a really crowded field, as you would probably expect in a Worlds year, right? Where a lot of the European contenders are using this as their warm-up. Like, this is the closest they'll get to replicating that level, and they're going at it full tilt. I think, realistically, France Open is the only side that's not there. Otherwise, most of Europe...
Belgium Open.
Yeah, that's fair as well.
Because they're going to be good.
Shocker.
Yeah.
Yeah, but otherwise, most of the top European powers are there, both Open Age and Masters as well. Yeah, it's gonna be a tough out. There's no easy games in that division, in my opinion.
No, yeah, I mean, even just to get into quarters, your 3 pool play games. To top the pool is going to be very, very difficult for everyone. But as soon as you get into crossovers, quarters, I think you get straight to quarters, semis, and finals. It's going to be lights out. So make sure you're watching. We'll pick winners, but let's go through it. Now let's go ahead. Let's pick some winners. I mean, I think I got a mega bias. We both might, but I'll let you go first to that end. Who do you think? Who do you think comes out of this on top? Or give me semi-finalists and then winners.
I think semi-finalists, Spain Open, GB Open, Solaris, ULTI.TV.
Yeah, so going to seed, I think that's fair.
You know what? No, I'll be spicy. Give me La Mixta over Solaris.
Okay, La Mixta over Solaris. I like it. Solaris not a completely full roster as they have.
That is why.
Okay, and then so getting through, how do you see it?
The final is going to be Spain, versus, I'm trying to work out how the bracket works. Spain versus La Mixta. Spain versus Spain mixed.
Schnizzles. All right,
And
spicy bench.
ULTI.TV will beat those chumps GB in the bronze medal match, and then Spain Open will beat Spain mixed in the final. I'm not picking ULTI.TV to win because I did not get an invite, and I am bitter.
Well, bitter Benji. Well,
I'm not bitter. It's fine.
Yes, it's fine. We'll find a way to put a smile on his face sooner or later, perhaps down in Lanzarote later in the season. I will pick ULTI.TV to win, and I will pick us to.
If you didn't pick ULTI.TV to win, I would have forcibly taken your place on that team.
Women's division, I'll give the rundown here.
Go ahead.
Enraladas, a Spanish-looking team here. Spain Masters, who've been together for a very long time, including all the way back at Copatanga this year. Spain women are going to be bloody awesome. France women look very good, and I was told Eva Borneau did not make it, but she is on the roster here. But I was told since her injury, she was told she's not on that team and will play mixed. But I do see her on the roster. GB women look strong, but I think they look very strong.
They do look really good, actually.
They're going to have their hands full, but who am I to say? Like, I don't know many of these women on sand, but a very, very good roster from Bex Palmer to Hannah Brew, Yorworth, Kate Gibson, Molly Wedge, Rachel Naden, and a lot of greats in between. That team could actually well do it. GB Masters, Germany Masters, then Germany Women, and then this team, Moras Cabronas, 7 players. They are going nearly savage.
Is that the female matching half of Spain mixed?
It's gotta be. They're awesome. They're gonna be good. They got Marta Ortiz, Aina Perez. They've got Julia Mas, Irena Jocolea. They're gonna be very good. Patricia Gonzalez Navaza. That is. I'm looking forward to seeing how well they can do with just 7.
Me too.
Murder She Wrote. I don't even know. That's looks like mostly Italian names, but they're all over the place. Ossifressen, one name only on the roster, so I'm guessing German. Piranhas, can't tell you. Polish women. Sabatuz is another Spanish team. Spain, great Grandmaster women, and then Swamp. And Swamp look like they're Swiss, or at least have 3 Swiss players that I recognize. You want to take some winners in this one, Benj?
Yeah, go on then.
So the top 4 seeds are Spain women, France women, GB women, and then those Moras Cabronas. Some big matchup. Moras Cabronas against Polish women will be a good one in the rounds. Germany women against French women will be a good one in the rounds. I'll let you go again. I mean, unless you want me to go.
I can take it. Let's just doing math in my head. Spain women, no doubt about that one. Do I want France or Germany? Probably I'd give the edge to France. I just think they're more experienced on the beach. Although great to see that Kio Binovice is on the Germany women roster.
Yeah.
One of my favourite players to watch.
Right there with you.
And then Moras Cabronas to top the pool as well. Do I want to take Enroladas over GB women? Part of me does, just because it's still a warm-up for GB women, and I think maybe they'll just take a little bit of time to get into their groove offensively. And then in the semi-finals, let's have Spain will win, France will win, and then Moras Cabronas will win there. I think Enroladas will... No, maybe I'll have Polish women over Enroladas.
Enroladas is seemingly Portuguese. I'm correcting myself. It's a lot of the,
they've got kind of
a bit
players
of
from
both. Yeah, maybe you're
Yeah.
right. It is a bit of both.
because they've got Nira Albadiaz and Lucia Otal,
And
but yeah, players
unfortunately, I
like
don't think
Ines Brinjel, Yulia Akramova.
Ines Brinjel will be there. Is tough news. That takes a major piece out of that roster.
Yeah, I'm gonna say then. Yeah, all the pool winners go through to the semis. So yeah,
With ya.
Spain, France, Enroladas, and Maurice Cabronas, and then that is gonna say the first semi. I'll take Spain over Maurice Cabronas, and I'll have. Do I want to take Enroladas over France?
I know it's a tough one. I think they're going to be gassed with only 7, but they are good. But I do.
I'll take Enroladas over France, and
All
then
right.
Spain over Enroladas in the final. Sure. Go
Okay,
ahead.
I would have it just with France going to the final, but I think I would still take Spain to get the job done. But it's going to be
Certainly, it's going to be Spain are the beach titans. Really, you'd be
Yeah.
surprised if they didn't.
the litmus test. It's always very interesting in prep tournaments because how many teams are going to be like, adjusting and modifying and trying something new and messing with their lines, and how many teams are just going to be like, hey, let's practice winning. Let's try and win this tournament. I know one team that is not messing around with anything and is just there to win. And then I
ULTI.TV.
think that's what, and I know that is our competitive advantage, as it always is going into a prep tournament. So fingers crossed that comes to fruition just for us.
Yeah, and if any of the national sides slightly underperform here, I don't think that necessarily needs to ring alarm bells for WBUC. It's totally different going out to Shekibo, and no offense to XQB, which is an outstanding tournament, obviously, and the crew in Valencia will do an outstanding job. But teams, know that this is not the be all and end all for them. And yeah, even though I said I'm not sure GB women will win the pool, do I think that's an ominous omen for? Although all omens are ominous, I guess by definition. Do I think that's a bad sign going into WBUC? Also, not necessarily.
I hear you. Yeah, I mean, London Invite was a similar situation going to the World Games. France underperformed as much as any World Games team did, and came home with a bronze medal. And that is just one example of surely many out there where these prep tournaments are good to kind of iron out some of the creases, even if you don't quite put the shirt on at the end of the day. But that is going to wrap up the show now. We got a lot of great Ultimate just happened. I think everybody's on some post-tournament depression, some PTD or PT downtime, perhaps, whatever you may call it. It was great to watch the European final. Loved watching the Great Grands, as always. We're into the peak of beach season now, and this weekend at JKBO is poised to be a great one. Make sure you're tuned in and watching ULTI.TV. Benji Reese, a pleasure to have you joining us. Thank you so much for being in the booth. You are the fountain of ultimate knowledge, as always. So much thanks for your insights and thoughts, and for bringing some well-needed, clout and credibility to the show. Thank you, Benjamin Reese.
It's all right. I'm sure my ultimate son will be back next week.
Well, we'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next time.